Welcome to the Adventure Mechanics. I'm Chandler. Today we'll be continuing our examining games with zero seating reviews, and on today's menu, it's Chubby Cats. Chubby Cats is a cat satisfaction puzzle game with time as a constraint. Chubby Cats was released on June 19th, 2025 by Just L Studio. It's their third game they've released on Steam, with another slated for release sometime in 2026. Just L Studio is a one-person show with their itch.io page showing the same number of games released as on Steam. From what I can tell, many of the games are targeted at the Chinese audience. It sounds strange to bring up now, but it's relevant, I promise. So, how does Chubby Cat play? It's pretty straightforward, honestly. You put islands down on a grid that contain ingredients locked up in trees. You then use a cat chef to liberate the ingredients from the trees and use them to either directly satisfy a waiting cat's hunger, or use those ingredients to make more complex foods that the waiting cats desire. You continue liberating ingredients and satisfying cats until the level's time runs out. There's no real tutorial in this game, but I was able to figure out and describe this game in a handful of sentences, so I'll let you determine whether or not those are actually necessary in this case. The cat's desires start out with ingredients directly and then become more and more complex foods as you complete levels. The progression to more and more complex puzzles is just about right to get a better understanding of before the game asks you to use them and go faster, very much like in the Mario vein of game design. The artwork is simple and friendly, with all the cats and ingredients being relatively easy to identify at a glance. The music is a perfect complement to the puzzles, being relaxing to promote you to get into the flow for feeding those cats. And although they do have an AI disclosure on the Steam page, it's limited to, and I'm quoting here, "In the game trailer, we use music from Stocktune, which provides royalty-free music in the public domain. The music can be freely used, shared, and adopted without payment or attribution." That sounds like the boilerplate from a stock music site to me. It's not great, but unless you're looking for AI-free music explicitly, you're going to run into this sort of disclosure. Why does this not have any reviews then? Well, it has 9, but every single one of them is from somebody who received the game for free and are written in Chinese and are positive. These do technically show up in the reviews list, but from my understanding, they don't have an impact on the review numbers since they were reviews from somebody who got the game for free. On one hand, that makes sense. Free copies given out could easily make a game from no reviews past the 10 review threshold for initial visibility. On the other hand, it's so statistically unlikely to ever reach past the 10 review threshold for most studios' first games that conventional wisdom is you have to get your first game being a learning experience. And woe be upon you if you don't expand your fan base enough with that first release to get it out of the no review hole. That is to say, Steam is the platform, and it's up to you to bring your audience and their attention to your game on Steam. That's not necessarily a bad thing, just a reflection of the reality of releasing on Steam nowadays. And from what I can find from Just L Studio, they put the game out there and did some marketing, but it obviously wasn't enough. There is one oddity from Chubby Cats that I want to point out. The reviews are all in Chinese. That, in and of itself, isn't noteworthy, as it's one of the largest markets on Steam, but it brings up a cultural difference that we in the West don't see when we usually look at Steam. Censorship. In China, most of the ways to get a hold of the developers through Steam are blocked. They can only use the review system to get the developer's attention. If you don't know, one of the reasons Slay the Spire 2 was review bombed was because of this. Chinese players were giving no recommendations and then using the review system to give the feedback that normally goes through the Steam Community Hub. I found this rather fascinating, so I dug into the censorship and cultural norms of Chinese gamers. And from what I could find, they typically don't leave positive reviews on games. They'll leave negative reviews to give feedback to the developer and then almost never update those recommendations. That makes Chubby Cat a little more interesting, especially when put into this context. The main audience for Just L Studio appears to be Chinese, a group of gamers that do not typically leave positive reviews. And because of that, Chubby Cat may be far more successful than expected. They may actually have more sales than a comparably reviewed Western game. Instead of being a sub 10 review game, it may actually end up looking a little bit more like a game that is further up the totem pole and into the lesser known puzzle games with dozens of reviews. I struggle to see it being larger than that, however. The concurrent player count has never broken 5 players. I suspect that it isn't that popular and is still in the no review category because of that. If there was a quiet audience that was playing this game, you would expect more than one player using it at any given time, not months of no players at all. I would also expect to see at least one bad review that wasn't gifted a copy, in tradition of giving the developer feedback. Maybe they're doing it off the platform. I couldn't verify that. What could be done to get more eyeballs on this game then? There's a lot of wisdom out there that may or may not be helpful in getting your game in front of your potential audience. Entering your game into as many festivals as possible to stand out, getting a streamer to pick it up and play it for a while, post ed blogs on how you made your game. All of these are good ways to get it in front of many eyes as possible. And that advice can work if you're persistent enough. I personally follow about a dozen developers who plug their game at least twice a week on their social media. Whatever path you choose to get your game out there, you need to be doing it almost as soon as you have started working on it, barring putting it into a festival before it's ready to even play, of course. There's a video by Isto Inc. that takes the conventional wisdom that experts like Chris Zukowski use called the marketing funnel and flips it on its head. In the video, which I'll link in the description below, they argue that you should be defining success before you can even settle on an idea. They then take that definition of success as defining how many sales you would consider at release to be a success and walk it all the way back to the ideation stage of game design. Although each step introduces more and more uncertainty, it also lowers the definition of success. And using something like this walkback method can help inform what success will look like for each step of your game's design journey. Why do I bring up this particular ideation method? Simple. It can help you define what progress will look like when you reach certain milestones in your game's design. And if you aren't succeeding in that particular area, maybe that's when you need to cut this particular idea. And it forces you to consider what you will need to achieve each step to be considered on track for your game's release, if you are on track. And persistence on pushing your game will help bring your audience to your game when it comes time to release. That's not to say I entirely agree with all the wisdom in the video. I don't. At the prototyping phase, they define success as getting your playtesters needing to play your game, and not just saying that it's fun. It's almost a useless metric driven by vibes as much as the enthusiasm of your playtesters. And that may end up taking you and your game beyond where you envisioned and offloading the fun parts of game design and decision making onto the feedback you're getting from those same playtesters. That's not only fraught with issues, it means you won't be making the game you want in the first place and almost designing by committee. And if you've ever been on a design committee, you'll know what I mean and why that's a bad thing. All the edges will be filed off and you'll end up with another bland as plain oatmeal game. You'll have a much harder time selling that oatmeal as a strange attractor if you've gotten rid of all the interesting bits. I'm not saying the video advocates it, but it's one of the logical conclusions of that thought process that I need to call out. It seems to work fine for Isto Inc. though, so what do I know? What seems to separate the studios that live from the ones that release one game and die is persistence. And both Just L Studio and Isto Inc. have released multiple games. And if there's one thing being so enthusiastic about games and game design has taught me, it's that getting a game to done is the first and most important step. I can't count how many games I've played that never made it past prototype and out to the larger audience they so desperately deserved. No matter how you choose to market your game, be persistent and keep plugging it like the devs I follow. You will find a way that works for you if you keep putting it out there. Well, that's about all that I have for this examination. If you have any comments, suggestions for other games with no reviews, or anything else, leave a comment below. I always enjoy talking about games and want to hear your thoughts on them too. If you prefer to use social media, you can find me as @JCSirron. Sirron. This has been another side quest on Games with No Reviews on Steam for the Adventure Mechanics. I'll talk to you next time. The intro and outro music are excerpts from Plinian, retro gaming version, royalty free. Music provided and produced by Lone Peak Music. Link in the description.